Hello there, beautiful tribe. As promised, day 9 of the 100 Days, 100 Stories, yet another change maker. Somebody who's making a difference in the lives of people whose lives mean the most to us, the teenagers. People in our family, kids in our family, who have a lot of talent, who are blessed with so much passion, so much information. Yet, of course, that age brings with it its own changes, its own conflicts. And we have somebody with us who coaches teenagers on life issues, on life skills, and it has definitely made an impact on many lives. A lot of testimonials say so from kids themselves. And I would now flip the camera, the focus, and the mic onto him. And I welcome Rajat Soni with me. Give me a minute till I switch the mic and we continue and get into a conversation with him. Hello, Rajat.
Hi Sonia. Hi
Yes.
everyone.
So, I do know that you are working very closely with teenagers,
Right.
coaching them on life issues, life skills. Uh, this happened how long before?
This was about 4 years back, 4.5 years back, and
And what was Rajat Soni before that? How concerned was he about teenagers, about working on helping teenagers deal with issues bigger than themselves?
oh well, the irony is I was doing nothing related to teenagers before that. I was a hardcore corporate guy. I've been through my conventional education, did my schooling, went on to do my engineering, my MBA, and I was working as the head of a business function in a leading startup. And I stepped out of the corporate world to be an executive coach. And I was fortunate enough to get my initial clients who were CXOs of organizations. And while I was working with one of the CXOs, we are generally on a 6-month contract. Okay. And 3 months had passed. And, one fine day he said that today we're not going to discuss work or anything else, but I want to speak to you about my child, who's a teenager, who's 15 years old. And his son had been diagnosed with Asperger's when he was 4 years old. So Asperger's is basically, it lies in the autism spectrum, and it is where a person has difficulty in making social interaction. The brain is wired in such a way that they have a difficulty in making social interaction, and they have almost no non-verbal expression. So there'll be no expression on their faces. So the father was talking to me about him, and in the end, he said that, we've tried to take professional help for him, but since he's a teenager and he's dealing with the condition, so he doesn't listen to us, so he doesn't stick with anyone. But I think that you can help him. So seeing the CXO who's always very confident on the outside, seeing the emotional father within him, I said, fine, I'll meet him, though I had no background of this particular condition. We happened to meet at a pizza place, and it's a comfort food for most teenagers, and it was for him too. And we met there, and he was very, very anxious. So he generally freezes in front of strangers or anybody new he meets. So initial conversation was the initial 15, 20 minutes. I was the only one talking, and he was just very nervous. You could see his shoulders were slouched. He was very, very anxious. But then after 15, 20 minutes, what somehow worked was me getting into his world, understanding his world. He's someone who really enjoyed listening to rap, and Tupac was one rap artist whom he took inspiration from. So when I started getting to his world is when he got interested, and after that communication started. And then I saw my phone, and there were like 6 missed calls from his father, and I just picked up the phone, and I'm like, what happened? He's like, where's my son? He's where you left where you left him. So he's like, it's been 2 hours, what are you guys doing? Because he doesn't stick with anyone for more than 10 minutes. And I'm like, no, we're having a good time. And I think that's the first time I realized that I connect so well with them, and my journey with him started. And there were various phases in that which were a lot of fun. We used to practice a lot of expression, emotions matching, him going to a bowling alley and just dancing his way off when he did a strike, because he was just realizing himself more. And then something happened. He went on a holiday, and he went through a meltdown over there because of a conversation over messenger which happened with his friend. Something happened and he went through a meltdown. And when an Aspie goes through a meltdown, he would incessantly cry, otherwise not expressing, but he would incessantly cry, and he would not know why he's doing that. And he completely shut down from everyone else. But he would come on the Skype sessions, he would come on the Skype calls, and he was just listening at that point in time. Again, he was not talking. So that's when I started practicing mindfulness with him, and getting his focus to the center, imbibing positive thoughts in him. And over those 2 months, that is all I was doing. So of course he was more calmer and more comfortable. uh, but again, the way we all wanted to see him happy, he was not his normal teenage thing which we wanted to see in him. Then he came back. He was back to India. He was avoiding my calls. I'm like, when are we meeting? When are we meeting? He's like, next week, next week, next week. I'm like, he never does that. He's a very, very sincere boy. Okay, he would do all actionables, everything. And then he came back after a month, and we met at one of the places in Gurgaon. And he just came, and he's like, Rajat. He used to call me Rajat. I was like, he would just tell his dad, I'm going to meet Rajat, like my friend. I was like a friend to him. And he said that, Rajat, I'm happy. And I'm like, I can see that. And, it just brought something within me that something has changed. But I'm like, what changed, Because there were so many things I had also worked on. We don't know what was working. Sometimes it also happens within. Also, the change happens. And then he said that for the last month, whatever actionables I was not able to do before, I had the courage to do all of them. I was speaking to people in the bus. I made a genuine effort to interact with a new person every day. I did all that. And, you know, and so I am here. And, that is the day when I think something within me just transformed. And I started working with teenagers.
And so far, how many teenagers have you really worked with? And what has been the change in your own life working with them?
Ah, in my own life, I think I have never been happier, never been more contented. Uh, and and the best thing about children is that they give you an immediate response. And uh, when you see them appreciating, or even when I see them making that change, I mean, that gives a very different, it's a very different feeling. It can't be expressed in words. It's a beautiful feeling. I think that's what's changed in me. Yeah. And somebody who was a hardcore corporate is now, totally into this. Yeah.
So you went full on, dived full head on into working with children.
Yeah, I mean, it is said that when you have some passion and when you really aspire to achieve something, then the universe just aligns with you and it makes it happen. So from one child, another child came, then more and more and more. And when that, just converted into a profession, I also didn't realize it. And it just happened just in a flow.
So while you were doing this, because with children, of course, there's a lot of influence, there's a lot of conditioning that comes through their families, their parents, and the values, belief systems, right? How easy or difficult has it been to work with all of those included? And does that also involve you to connect with parents, help them understand their children better? Has that been challenging? What has been your experience with that?
Yeah, so far I've worked with about 1,000 teenagers, and say out of those 1,000 teenagers, about 400 families where parents were also involved, which were one-to-one sessions. Um, Generally, uh, it rings a bell in the parents' mind when things go a little extreme. They don't realize, and then they become all aware. Okay, like there was one parent who had approached me, say about 2 years back, and their son, he had he had failed his class 11th with only because, as we discussed, we understood, because he was maintaining his good boy image. So although he was not enjoying what he was doing, he was still putting the good face in front, because everybody used to say, you're a good boy, you're a good boy, you're a good boy. And he failed his 11th class, and the parents were more concerned at that point and about, what will he do next? Are this person we really trust? He's saying that he should go to so he studies in a Delhi school, and they said you can go to a school in some small town, and he should shift over there, and he should not repeat the class. Now, at that point in time, the focus was more on other things than on the self-esteem of the child. Imagine what he was going through at that point in time. He was so shattered from within. He was feeling so rejected. He was feeling so so disappointed with himself. The focus, see, if the focus is on the self-esteem, then everything else falls in place. If things change from within, if a child or a person in general learns to accept himself or herself, then everything falls in place. The world starts accepting you. In students, the grades improve. I have seen that happening. They make their own decisions for their career. And that parent at that point in time did not start coaching at that point in time. A year later, the child was suffering even more. He got into vaping. He got into, vaping is also e-cigarettes. That's also become very big nowadays. He went into a very different direction because, yes, he stopped into the same school, but he could not bear that he was less than the other children. And things took a very different... And then they came to me. And then the parents were ready to listen and ready to understand how they could use conscious parenting strategies and how they could communicate better with their child. So then is when the parents' role. So now, whenever I do either my personal coaching sessions or my group coaching sessions, they involve teenagers till a certain point in time, and then the parents and teenagers come together, because that's really important for both of them to get into each other's world. So yeah, that's there.
Since you interestingly mentioned that how this particular case in point, the fact that the parent, the guy could have repeated his class. So reminds me, back in 6th, I failed my 6th standard first time because I was horrible at maths. Horrible to the extent that I scored, I think, 7 out of 100. And I had to repeat my 6th standard, because of which I did not enjoy my schooling at all. When I did my the second time, the whole, living with the fact that I have failed, living with the fact that I felt that I was being judged at every point, and I did not have anybody to talk to.
Precisely.
Because parents did what they thought best was, what they best thought was to be done. There's nothing to blame them for. However, now, the whole thing involving parents and becoming more conscious as parents, how do you think parents can now start working with kids? Because everybody's so involved in their work. What are those little steps that parents can take to engage better with their kids and not get into the direction when things go wrong? Not come to that extent when they react, instead be proactive in connecting with their kids. What is it that you suggest and recommend to parents?
The first thing is the very mindset. The mindset is towards making their children successful. The mindset should be preparing them to handle failure. because failure is a reality. And because children are not able to handle failure, they get into different directions, right? The other thing is communication, the way you communicate with your child. If you'll ask your child, how was school? He will give a one word answer: good. He will not go beyond that. Instead of that, asking, so what was the best thing about school today? And having all your five senses active. Because children understand that. They show what they see. If they see you expressing, they will express. Right? So ask them, what was the best thing about school today? And they will share. Teenagers need their parents. As much as the parents may think that they want to be independent, they need them the most. So that is, the very first thing that is important, communication. Second is, as you said, see, the most common fear, of the teenagers I have coached is the fear of being judged. Of being judged by their parents, by the teachers, by the fellow students, even by their siblings. And that judgment can only be handled by first the parents not judging themselves, clearing their own belief system before they are sitting with their child. Because there are so many impressions that are formed during the day. There is so much that they have gone through, and they have to first clear their thought process and then talk to the child in a very, very non-judgmental way. Because it's very quick for us to jump to advice. Abhi bola something, the child said, there was one child, the mother was very upset when she came to me and the first time, and the daughter, she told me when I met her, when only me and the daughter met, she said that in school somebody called me fat, and in a very bad way. And I was sharing that with my mother, and my mother said, देखा मैंने तेरे को कहा था तेरे को पतला होना चाहिए. She was not understanding the emotion of the child. Instead, she was just jumping to a judgment or to an advice. So, very important to step into the shoes of the child, develop that rapport. Another thing is, of course, appreciation and acknowledgement. Appreciate your child, not for the results, but for the efforts. There is someone who stood for a head boy position, and he did not clear it. Coming back, the father says that, congratulations on your effort. Your speech was great. Get him with you and then ask him what could he have done better. Let him develop his own thinking. It should come from him rather than coming from anybody else. And then there is one thing very common that their children just come in from school and something has happened and they are very upset, so they will not say hi, hello. They'll just throw their bags away and go and close the door. So respecting the closed door policy is really important. And this is a thing that came from one of the teenagers I coach. So he used to tell me that my mom, I'm like in my room and she just steps in and she just lies down next to me. And I want my space then. So it's not necessary that your child is hiding something from you at that point in time. He's just trying to figure out, who he is and where he wants to be. And the most important, I mean, if we can put it in bold, we should put it in bold, is time. Build exclusive time with your children and make it fun. That's a time when you create a rapport with your teenager. Go out for bowling together, eat out together, or just have a general conversation which is not around the academics and the career of the child. Because what happens generally, when the parents are coming after a day, both are working, they're coming back, they have only one focus, the career and the academics of my child. And the child also feels a lot of pressure. He's already feeling guilt for not being able to live up to the expectations of his parents. And when the parents also say it, it adds to the pressure and it creates a clutter within them. So I think building exclusive time and making it worthwhile is really important. And parents also need to understand today that the game has changed. It's not the same way you used to, like the teenagers today. We were not born in a bed with mobile phones and with technology. So it's the very different, and the EQ and IQ of children is very different today. You cannot take them for granted. You cannot teach and tell them. You have to model the behavior you want to see in your children. So yeah, there are a whole lot of things, but yeah, these are the main ones.
Yeah, I think it does help because a lot of times what is happening is that parents, to everybody outside these teenagers, is judging them to be withdrawn, to be not very stable in whatever they think, but to have a rather more compassionate and a more over holistic view to what their life really is about is what helps. And I think your tips really does help them guide. What, however, have been your challenges when you've been dealing with children? Has it also sometimes, created some kind of tough emotion or a tough space for you to deal with? Has there been any such challenge which you also feel that you're yet to overcome or you are trying to overcome when working with children?
There was one challenge which I of course overcame, was especially when I was working with the first child who was Asperger's, and when he went through that meltdown when he was abroad. So as he was having sleepless nights, I was having sleepless nights because I was not able to detach myself at that point in time from. So it became very tough for me also because uh, being an empath, I was literally feeling the emotion he was feeling. So that was a little challenging time for sure. But then as I worked with more and more and more, I learned to gradually detach myself, probably go out for a break and things like that. The other challenge which comes is from the parents, because sometimes parents are trying to they see a coach as a person to get their things put across to the child rather than to understand what the child really wants. A coach is there to prepare your child, to help your child handle both winning and losing, to help him build his character. If he is doing what you expect him to do, then it's you, it's not him. So it's very important for the children to develop their own thinking. So yes, with parents I have faced challenges initially, and still I witness parents who are like, अभी एग्जाम्स आ रहे, एग्जाम्स के बाद देखेंगे. They don't realize that this is where the priority space is. This was automatically outcomes you cannot control, but you can prepare your child to handle any outcome which comes. That is what is, I think, that's been a challenge.
Since you brought this up, that exams coming in between and the parents not wanting the coaching to continue at that point in time, how much difference does life coaching and handling life issues and getting more adept at life skills, how much is it directly related to their academics?
It makes a remarkable difference. I had done a Zoom seminar for managing exam stress, and there was a fairly good response to the number of children who came. And there we first went on to a little bit of a guided meditation because they also wanted to calm down. Very important to calm them down first. Understanding that examination is simply a way for you to be a better version of yourself. It is not you being better or worse than anybody else. It's simply a tool to help you measure how much you have learned over a period of time. Because there is so much hype created about exams still that children are really, it sometimes some children seem like they're almost leading to depression. It's crazy how they feel about exams. And then they learn affirmations, and the one affirmation which is common to all, otherwise they develop their own, but one which is common to all is that I am awesome. And you'll have them. So most of my students, when they're doing their affirmations, they will either be on the, when they're waking up in the morning, in the bathroom, it will be on the mirror, then those sticky notes, and it'll be like, I am awesome. I'll focus on what is important for me right now, and things like that, and they read it every day. And it's simply amazing the way. So it changes their perspective about examination altogether. So that's how it makes a difference, especially for exams. It definitely improves grades. It improves, and even if the grades don't come as they want it, they are happy. They deal with it very differently, and they create their own things. Fine, if you're getting a 65% now, that's awesome. This is awesome. This is more awesome. Where do you want it to go? It's not necessarily 65, so you want a 90. Even if you're going from a 65 to 70, that's great.
Yeah.
It's about your happiness with respect to that. So that is something that really matters.
I think that also helps them build perspective on what happiness really is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are the changes, when you see those happy faces? How much influence does it make in your life, in your family's life? Do you have kids?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I'm single.
Okay. But that's interesting to be somebody who's single and yet be able to understand kids so well and to connect with them, not being a parent. That's very beautiful. Does that also come up as a question anytime from parents?
Not really.
Okay.
That's never been a challenge. Yeah.
And what all do you do with kids? What are the kind of programs? What are the things that you help them navigate through? Any specific things that you would like to mention?
Sure. So one is, of course, personal coaching, which is one-to-one, which is completely personalized to the teenager, which whatever thing he's coming up with. So it will always start with it always starts with the parent first. The parent generally mentions their perspective of the child. Then I have an interaction with the child to understand his perspective. And then we set goals together for the child being the most important there, because he leads the sessions. So they are one-to-one sessions which happen. They're very customized. A general structure is, of course, going from their dreams to structuring them into goals and so on and so forth. The second is group coaching, group trainings, which I do, which is there are two signature programs that I have. One is a leadership program for teenagers, and one is the Paint Your Own Future. Leadership program is something which I've done in so many schools so far, and that is where children learn about skills like empathy, decision making, resilience, and how to imbibe them and use them in day-to-day life. So thinking and acting like a leader in day-to-day life. Paint Your Own Future. So as you asked me, the program is coming up on the 30th of November. It's a 4-week journey that the teenagers and parents take with me. So it's basically spread like this. There is a 2 immersive days of programs. That's 30th November and 1st December, 9:30 to 5:30. The first day is purely with the teenagers or preteens. So anybody who's 10 plus, any child is eligible for that. And that day I work with the children on their dreams. They live their dreams over there. There are ways of doing it. They structure them into goals, and then they unleash their own strengths by purely human connections. And they're learning from the same age group of people. And then they learn about how to manage, which is a very big thing from parents nowadays. They are not making their schedules. If they're making it, they're not following it. So they learn that. Time management is something they learn over there. The second day is with parents and teenagers together. So that's a day when they both delve into each other's world. And that day is like an event. We had the previous one, and it was like an event. It was, the parents were learning also, and they were enjoying also. And then there are 4 live video sessions, 3 with the teenagers and preteens, and 1 with the parents, where basically the 4th session is, before the 4th live session, I share a feedback with the parents for each child who comes in. So, and that's an analysis which is a very detailed email, which is based on my human connection with the child. And based on that, I share that, and then in the Zoom call we discuss that in the final Zoom call. So it's a 4-week journey which includes awareness, acceptance, and action.
Beautiful. And you mentioned the dates for this is it begins 30th November.
30th November, yeah, that's right.
And since we've been talking about all of this, one thing that I want to also understand is how you've been personally with your work, been able to influence people in your close friend circle to anybody else that you've probably been connected with to be more considerate to the future of our country, that is the teenagers, the kids. Uh, because of course your work makes you do it because you are doing it out of passion. However, has it also had a great influence in your immediate circle, in your inner circle?
It's definitely made more people pursue their own passion. So I have a ex-colleague of mine, and he had a passion for photography, but he was always into his daily rut of, he was a finance professional and everything. He quit his job, and now he's doing great. It's been 2 years now, and he's doing great because he's pursuing his passion, what he truly wants to do. The other difference which came, although it was more with work only, there was this family where the parents were the father and the mother were very disconnected with each other because they used to constantly blame each other for their child's condition. So there was a constant conflict between the parents. So when the child evolved himself and transformed himself, now the parents are together and they share a great bond. So it's like that entire family, they are one unit finally, not only in front of people, but also behind. So that's been very beautiful.
Your love and passion for doing what you're doing just shows on your face when you're talking about all the changes that have happened
Okay.
in so many lives. It's so visible.
Thank you.
So before we come to the signing off, what is it that you would like to share with people who are watching this? I have no idea why my live feed does not show how many people we have already watching. There's some glitch, but
Okay.
definitely we're live. But yeah, what is it that you would like to share as some key points, key takeaways that people can start implementing in their lives on a daily basis?
Yeah, so for parents who are listening, teenagers need your time. So start giving that right away. Second thing is that the game has changed, and so should you. And the third is that focus more on preparing your children for failure rather than stressing so much on success. That's my 3 takeaways.
One question that again comes to me is since you mentioned that spend more time, what I increasingly see is that while conscious parenting is on the rise, slowly and gradually, a lot of times for the time that parents are not able to spend, they compensate with either technology or
money.
gifts or something more materialistic in nature. How does that eventually end up? How does it eventually end? How does it eventually conclude when it comes to the children? What really happens?
It can have very adverse conditions. I'll share very, very briefly. I had a child like that he was only 13, and he belongs to a highly affluent family, and the parents never say anything to him. He is a child who is anyways very impulsive by nature. His nature is that he's very, very impulsive, and he has never heard a no in his life from his parents ever. So he's a trap shooter already. That's great. But if he wants a gun which has to come from Italy, it will come for him. And now their parents are facing an issue that whenever they want to say no to him for anything, he gets aggressive. He's gone to the extent of almost hitting his own father because he could not bear. So, father was trying to stop him from doing something and he would not do it. So, time cannot be replaced by anything else. And of course, one more thing is acceptance. Accept you as you are, accept your child as he is. He is awesome and you are awesome. Respect each other. That's it.
Great. And before we sign off again, you can definitely mention the next workshop that you're about to do, which you already mentioned, so that people can look at it and sign up. I would definitely share it because it is important for each and every teenage life. Uh, Such interventions are so important because they bring them closer to their own selves, and of course to the parents.
So, the program, as I said, is called Paint Your Own Future because it is focused on the future of your children, where they learn to set their own goals across each area of their life. May it be their relationship with the parents, may it be overcoming social anxiety, may it be getting better academic grades, may it be making decisions for their career. They will learn strategies and they will implement them during the program. And the program starts from November 30th. 2019. That's a Saturday, and yeah, and you can of course check my website for it. It's www.rajatsoni.coach.
Thank you, Rajat, and thank you for being there. I definitely am very confident. I don't hope, I'm very confident that this live conversation did create a lot of value in your life. We all have kids, teenagers around us, and their lives are utmost important, uh, are of utmost importance to all of us. They're very precious. They're the future. There's so much energy, there's so much enthusiasm and passion that they carry, but a lot of times we end up judging too quick. We end up misreading things and are not equipped well enough to handle things with them, handle situations better. uh, do get in touch with Rajat, for he has been helping parents and teenagers coach on their life. Uh, and thank you again for watching, for being here. I do hope that you're loving this journey of 100 Days and 100 Stories. We'll be seeing you again tomorrow with yet another change maker. Do share this, do tag, and do comment on whatever your learnings were, whatever your takeaways were. If you have any questions, please do address it directly with Rajat Soni. And do share the love. Do tag people who you think will definitely benefit from this video. And thank you again. I'll see you tomorrow.